Hello everyone, I'm Nini FC and this is Blue Lines TV, and today, groundbreaking news, Micheal Emenalo has resigned today. And yes, I do say resign because he left on his own accord. Actually, in fact, he handed in his resignation last week, and it was only today that he left, and he left at 11 AM. Now, again, what does this mean for the club now? It's very abrupt, especially after coming after a fantastic win against Manchester United. And literally in this video, I'm just going to be discussing my opinions. I'm going to be letting you guys know why I feel that Emenalo has been seen in the wrong way. I'm going to be talking about what this means for the club. And I'm actually going to talk about what Emenalo was even doing in the first place. Now, getting straight into the video. In a press statement today, Micheal Emenalo said, "This has been a very difficult decision to make, but one I believe is right for both myself and my family and the club. I've had the privilege to work alongside some of the most talented people in the world of sport over the past 10 years, and I will depart incredibly proud of the achievements we have made. I wish Chelsea every success and look forward to following the club's future triumphs from afar." Now, trying to analyze the statement a bit into detail, of course he says his family decision as well, basically stating that wherever he's going to, he's going to be paying quite a lot of money. Now, I'm going to get into later on who this alleged club are supposedly going to be. And another thing he says as well is that it's the right decision for the club as well. Now, that's kind of telling, because why is it the right decision for the club? Now, there are reports coming out that there's a power struggle at Chelsea between Antonio Conte and Marina, and it seems like Emenalo was in the crossfire and right in the middle. Now, I've been making this point all the time at Chelsea, but there's no unified philosophy at the club. Now, it's not necessarily the fact that one person's bad out of the trio. They all have different roles, but they just don't complement each other. Now, Marina's role is in terms of the negotiations and actually bringing the players in. Emenalo's in terms of the scouting and looking after the loan army and the youth academy. And Conte is just the first team coach. Now, of course, Emenalo and Conte do have a relationship in terms of, if Conte says, "I need a midfielder or a striker," it's up to Emenalo to do a scout report on the players who are going to fit the system and fit Conte's style, and then him and Conte will decide who the best options are. Naturally, because it's football, there will be certain times where the technical director will vouch for this player and the manager will vouch for another player, but in general terms, it has been quite successful. I know some first choice targets haven't come, but there's only so much the club can do. For example, when Bonucci didn't come, or Koulibaly, or Nainggolan, it's unfortunate, but at the same time, when you can bring in David Luiz and N'Golo Kante, is it really that bad? And as I've said before, this is the difference between Conte at Juventus and Conte at Chelsea. At Chelsea, if Conte can't get A, B is going to be very good or even better. At Juventus, if you can't get option A, that's basically it. Your second choice option is going to be of considerably less talent. Now, it's quite interesting, this power struggle that's been happening, because that's really affecting Emenalo's job now. In my opinion, I feel he's been getting a lot of criticism from the press, and especially from fans who don't really understand what his job entails. Now, he's been criticised for poor transfers, which is really unfair, because there's other sporting directors out there that make equally poor decisions. For example, Steve Walsh. Now, he made his name for bringing in Mahrez, Vardy and Kante. 3 successful signings out of how many players that he's brought into Leicester. Tons and tons that did nothing in the team. Now, it's been a long time coming for Emenalo in terms of resigning from the club. 4 years previously, he did hand in a resignation which Abramovich rejected because he knew that Jose Mourinho was going to become the manager. Now, why would Emenalo do that? Well, Emenalo was brought in and he was promoted to become technical director because Chelsea wanted to change the philosophy and vision of the club. Now, we were kind of stuck in that Mourinho mold for how many years? And it wasn't until after the Champions League where the club were trying their hardest to really try and move out the old and bring in the new, and bring in a new style and a new philosophy. Now, that was Emenalo's job. He was looking in for players to bring into the academy, some of the best young talent in Europe, and the likes of Christensen, Boga and Masunda, and he was looking at players to change the style of the team. That was why Juan Mata was brought into the club, to really kickstart change at Chelsea. Now, of course, with Mourinho coming in, what that entails is that Mourinho is a guy that needs to have control and power at a club. He doesn't want to have to answer to any middleman at the club. Every decision Mourinho is going to make is going to be the correct one, and it's no surprise why so many Emenalo signings didn't really work with Chelsea at that period in time. I'm talking about the likes of De Bruyne's, Lukaku's, your Salah's and your Schürrle's. Now, it's not because they weren't good enough, because as time's told, Look at Salah, 12 goals already in the Premier League. De Bruyne is one of the best players in the world. Lukaku is one of the top strikers in the world. It goes on and it goes on. And the reason why those players are brought in was because originally there was a style that Chelsea wanted to have. A possession, expressive, expansive, high-pressing style, which Mourinho just doesn't suit and doesn't want. So it was no surprise why so many players of that ilk really struggled and didn't do their best. Now, there were a lot of issues between Emenalo and Mourinho, and I feel that maybe Mourinho was using Emenalo as a scapegoat, and that turned a lot of fans against him, because during that time, fans couldn't see any issues with Mourinho. He could do no wrong. It was always someone else's fault, and already he was getting blamed for transfer targets. But now, breaking it down, Mourinho wanted Pedro. Now, we beat Manchester United to the signing of Pedro. Falcao Mourinho wanted. He thought he could help him regain his form and regain the form that made him one of the best strikers in the world. Now, there was criticism surrounding Michael Hector and Papa Djibril. Now, this really baffles me in terms of Djibril, because they were all signings for the loan army. Now, this is the reason why Emenalo looks like he's going to go to Monaco, which I'm going to get into shortly in this video, because the guy basically flipped Djibril, someone that isn't a great player, wasn't very good, was bought for 2 million, sold for nearly 10 million. And on top of that, he's been on loan to Werder Bremen, who paid a loan fee and then paid his wages. So he basically got a player for free, cost 2 million, sold for 10 million, flipped him for four times his market value. Now, I honestly can't understand how that's not being noticed or realized. And this is why Emenalo is one of the top sporting directors in football. And it's no surprise that Monaco looked like the favourite to be bringing him in, because Emenalo's philosophy and management suits a team like Monaco to a T. Monaco are a team who want to bring in young players who have the potential to become worth much more in this market. Look at last season, signing Bernardo Silva, who'd been with the B team at Monaco, and then, you know, he's just gone to Man City. This guy was a struggling left back at times for Benfica. Same thing with Yannick Carrasco. He was signed for their B team, got promoted to the Monaco first team. The amount of money they made on him, your Mendy's, your Bakayokos, your Mbappe's, your Martials, a ridiculous amount. And on top of that, the style of football that Monaco play, now that's really going to complement Emenalo's qualities in terms of scouting some of the top youngsters, being able to have the pulling power to bring these guys in at the same time. And he knows too that they'll get game time playing for Monaco. Now at Chelsea, it wasn't his fault that a lot of the signings he did bring in never played. It's because they weren't suiting the management style at the time. And it's not only the players that were brought in, such as your Salahs, your Lukakus, your De Bruynes, etc, etc, but it was also the youth players as well. He played an instrumental part in bringing in the likes of your Masundas, who he beat off a ton of clubs throughout Europe, especially Barcelona, to bring him in. Your Bogus, your Andreas Christensens, some of the top players in Europe, and look what they're doing now. If it wasn't for Emenalo, we wouldn't have had the vision to bring these guys in and get them at the age we got them at in the first place. And it is an example of the disunity between the management and the sporting director was January last year in the transfer window. Now, Conte was adamant that he wanted Llorente to come in, who he's wanted for a very long time for some baffling reason, and Biabiani because he wanted some support on the right hand side and competition for Moses. But then Emenalo said, instead of spending money on guys who aren't going to get better and aren't worth anything, going to be a waste of money short term, we've got people in the loan army that can do something at Chelsea. So he brought back Nathan Ake and brought back Charlie Masunda, and Conte wasn't necessarily happy with those guys because he felt that you guys have to support me. If I need a player for the team, I know what's best, support the manager. But at the same time, the club have to think about what's going to be financially successful, because it doesn't make any business sense to sign these types of players who aren't that good in the first place and will just be a waste of money long term. Now, in my opinion, do I think it's necessarily bad to be having some of the loan players playing a part in the first team? I don't think so. And I think at Chelsea, especially with Emenalo, he was trying to instill a lot of the young guys to gain these squad places that Conte didn't want to give them. Conte wanted to buy experienced older players to fill these squad roles. And for example, you can see how poor his youth management was last season. I mean, for example, Ruben Loftus-Cheek. We just seen this game against Manchester United yesterday with how he used Bakayoko. Now, what stopped him from using a 3-5-2 last season when we could have easily done that, and we were doing that at times during the second half of games? Why wasn't that a thing? We had Ruben Loftus-Cheek that could have fulfilled that same Bakayoko role in the previous game yesterday. Wasn't given a chance. Whenever he played, he was playing up front and on the wings. And of course, with Emenalo, there was a lot of pressure on him as well, because parents would be on his back saying, my son needs to play this, play that. The youngsters will be on his back saying, I want to get game opportunities and stuff like that. A lot of times he was trying to fulfill promises, I feel, that weren't really ever going to get met, because the bottleneck was always going to be the manager picks the team and scored in the first place. But moving back to Monaco, and as I was saying, they look like the favourites to bring in Micheal Emenalo to fulfill that sporting director role that they need at the club. So if anything, Emenalo has realised there's only so much I can do at Chelsea. My hands are tied, because even if I bring these players in, there's still no guarantee they'll play, and then I'm going to get criticism somehow for some reason. I need to find a suitor that's going to match my philosophy and footballing style, and I'm going to have great success with them. And I feel that Monaco and Emenalo perfectly complement each other. Now, what does this mean for Chelsea now that Emenalo has resigned from the club? Now, I'm going to talk about some statements released by Marina and Bruce Buck. Now, Marina has basically said, "We are extremely grateful to Micheal for his tireless work over the past 10 years. He has played an important role during the most successful period in the club's history, helping make Chelsea the club it is today. We will now be reviewing our management structure, and Micheal will be a part of that process as we look ahead." Bruce Buck says in a statement, "It is with regret that the owner and board of directors accepted Micheal's resignation this week. He has had a tremendous impact on the club over the past 10 years, and that is evident in everything we have achieved. We are sorry to see him go, but understand his desire to move on and explore new challenges." So anyone saying that they think the club might have sacked him, that wasn't the case. A fantastic opportunity came in the form of Monaco, and Emenalo's thinking, this suits my role much better. Now, Marina did say something quite interesting in terms of reviewing the management structure. Now, what does that tell me? Well, one, it could mean that we'll be looking within the people we have at the club to really promote them. Now, that's what Chelsea have been doing over the past 10 years. Emenalo was a testament to that, working as a scout and first team coach to then become the technical director. A lot of the youth managers that have won with the youth teams have been promoted to the higher levels as the years have gone on, and it's just how Chelsea work. So there's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, what if she means by reviewing the management structure, they might end the role of technical director? And what if that means that they'd rather give more control to the manager in terms of what they want to do? Now, that comes with its risks and benefits. Now, if Chelsea did want to go down this route, they'd have to guarantee managers time. And in football, even if you had a disastrous season, that couldn't affect their job. Now, if you do want to go down that path, the managers need time and patience. But at the same time, there is a negative to this, because sometimes if you don't bring in the right manager, then it could affect things in the long term. For example, Mourinho came in his first spell, the identity of that team was there for the next 5 to 6 years, and the club really couldn't get rid of it. When we tried to bring in players like Shevchenko and Fernando Torres, they really struggled because they never suited the style of the team and how the team was built and played. It took until the Champions League to really change everything. And why did that happen? That was because a lot of the older players had left by then, and it was time for the club to change things and start afresh. But what does this mean now that Emenalo's left? Well, it's going to be curious to see what happens with the loan army and that structure, because Emenalo was key to really starting that in the first place. Now, of course, I will give him some criticism in that regards, as I feel that a lot of the young guys, part of the loan army, didn't necessarily go to the best clubs they could have, and there wasn't enough care. And it's natural when you have about 40 players on loan, it's very hard to find the best clubs of 40 different players. And I really feel that it seemed like there was a model where they were looking at these young guys as like statistics instead of human beings, and they kind of just came to the conclusion that, well, if 4 or 5 of these guys make it, that's more than enough. In my opinion, I don't think that's good enough, because the amount of talent coming up from the academy, it's been the best academy teams we've had in Chelsea's history. I feel that more should have been done, especially when you're seeing inferior players in other teams having greater success. But at the same time, players that do well on loan don't really have any opportunities when they come back. Now, that's not Emenalo's fault. That comes down to the management, because they have their own ideals, and unfortunately there's no unifying philosophy where Marina, Emenalo and Conte could work in tandem. Now, when you compare that to Man City, they're a club on the up now. They did everything. They changed the whole structure and dynamics, first of all in preparation for Pep Guardiola, and in preparation because they wanted to become one of the powerhouses in European football. They've got one of the best academies now. They've got one of the best managers in the world. And the players are bringing in too. They're bringing in some of the most talented youngsters, young under 24 players in the world right now. And they look like a club on the up. And I really feel that this is the direction that Chelsea needs to go in, because we have all the ingredients. We have all the fits of the puzzle. We just need to fit them together right now. Still, with Emenalo possibly moving to Monaco, does that mean that some of the Chelsea's youth players will actually make the move there as well? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. It's definitely a possibility because Emenalo does have very strong favourites at Chelsea now. One player that I wouldn't be surprised making the move in January could possibly be Charlie Masunda. Now, 2 years prior, Monaco were trying to make a bid for him. They did want to bring him in. And I'm thinking with Masunda adamant for first team football, he could actually get that game time at Monaco now. They could do with a player of his possibilities on the left hand side. But anyway, all I need to say is obviously thank you to Micheal Emenalo. He's done a fantastic job. His vision has been amazing. It's unfortunate that there hasn't been a unifying management at the club where it could really come to life and we can see the full extent of what he was trying to build. I mean, we can see what could have happened with the likes of your De Bruyne's, your Salahs, your Lukaku's, and some of the younger players that could have got more game opportunity as well. We'll never know, but I think that Chelsea now, if he does go, really, we have to start afresh again. We need to start building for the future and have a long-term plan. But anyway, I'd like to wish Micheal Emenalo good luck in his future. Of course, going to Monaco is a fantastic opportunity. His management skills and his ability is really going to complement Monaco. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. So anyway, you guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope I changed some of your opinions on Micheal Emenalo and how I feel he's been misperceived by a lot of us fans and the media. And I just wanted to tell you guys what really his role was about. And I hope that you guys took something from this video. Anyway, I'm the EMEFC. This is Blue Lines TV. Signing out.